Hi, I'm Don Bodan from SampleLibraryReview.com, and today we're going to be checking out Berlin Symphonic Strings by Orchestral Tools. Berlin Symphonic Strings is the latest edition of Orchestral Tools' acclaimed Berlin series. All of the Berlin series libraries have been recorded on Teldex Scoring Stage, which makes them easy to integrate and get a great cohesive sound. Library downloads is 74 gigabytes. This is down from 168 gigabytes using their SINE compression. It's a large string sections library with 5 sections sampled at 24-bit 48K with 18 players for first violin, 16 for second violin, 14 violas, 12 cello, and 8 basses. It's been captured with the musicians in their traditional seating positions at the Teldex Scoring Stage, and it does include 4 dynamic levels with pianissimo up to triple forte. The library includes multiple articulations, sustains, soft sustains, accented marcatos, long marcatos, short staccatos, spiccatos, pizzicatos, tremolos, trills, as well as 3 different legatos, including a melodic legato, rapid legato, which is a runs legato, and a pattern legato, which has been recorded to deliver ostinatos. The library includes multiple mic positions, which you can access through the mixer. It is a SINE player instrument, and it does require the latest version of Orchestral Tools' SINE player. It normally sells for €549. It's on a special intro price just until January 3rd, 2021. €399. Now, it's important to note that because it's a SINE player instrument, you can purchase individual instruments and customize what you want, download only what you're going to be using. All right, before we dive in and take a look at all the instruments, mic positions, articulations, I did a little mock-up. This is a piece I'd worked on in the past. I wanted to hear kind of what it would sound like, what maybe the Berlin Symphonic Strings would bring to the sound of this piece, because it's got a lot of dynamic range, and that's one of the things the library kind of touts, is going from the pianissimo to the triple forte. Now, you probably heard some other percussion and wind instruments in that, and that is because I utilized Orchestral Tools' Berlin Orchestra Inspire 1, and this is a really nice little library if you're not familiar with it. Lots of ensembles, great for sketching, but it's also got some good sounds, so you could keep those in for final mixes. So let's go ahead and let's just listen to this piece with just the strings part isolated. So for me, that gives me a much better idea of doing a mock-up like this, utilizing a piece of music I've already worked with before, especially with other libraries, because I can kind of get an idea of evaluating what the sound is compared to other string libraries I've used in the past. And after the first look at the end, I'll try to summarize all of those thoughts, the pros and the cons that I hear about Berlin Symphonic Strings. But first, let's dive in and listen through all of the sections. Library comes in the SINE player. which, if you're not familiar, the Orchestral tools have been developing the sample player for the last year. It's gone through a few variations, and it's become more and more stable. I have to be honest and say that I've had a lot of trouble with it the beginning of the year. I've wanted to review libraries for the SINE player, and this one seems the most stable, this latest version thus far. You do want to get the latest version of the SINE player as they update, especially because it is required for Berlin Symphonic Strings here. As you can see, the library, Berlin Symphonic Strings, comes with violins 1 and 2, violas, celli, and basses. Now, as I'd mentioned in the facts, their articulations range across sustain legato, rapid legato, pattern legato, which we're going to get into and check those out a little bit more. There's also sustains stop and sustains accents. So I'm just going to mute my mic and we'll load up some of those articulations. You'll be able to see the switching here and as well as here in the player version. Now, because I've loaded this up right after my demo, you'll see that I've got a number of the microphones turned on here. And the reason I did that is because I didn't feel like I got the airiness until I added outrigger and surround mics. I'm going to go ahead and mute these, and I'll just play that same sustain legato without those. Now, of course, that's going to be a matter of opinion on what you think about the sound, but in my opinion, this is what I gravitate towards using in my mock-up. And I felt that, like, that was the way for me to get that tingly high air in the room sound that you get from way up high, those bowed, the bow against the string sound. Let's move on and listen to some of the other articulations here. We have just sustains. And then there's a version for soft sustains. I found these especially useful in my mock-up, just to be able to get more of a realistic, warm, soft sound that also has that high end of that string bow sound moving around in the room. There's the accent sustains. Which vary from the marcatos. There's long marcatos. As well as the shorts. Staccatos. Going even shorter with spiccatos. Pizzicato. And this is another one where I do want to pull down the outrigger and the surround so you can hear the difference in the sound of this, because just with the default mics, the Violin 1, Spot, and Tree, it is a nice clean sound, but I really love adding these outrigger and surround for what you get in the room now. It's just that little bit more detail and bite. Tremolo. And then trills. What I thought was interesting about the way they've done trills, if they've got the foot pedal set up for variation on trills, for high trills, or whole tone trills, and half tone trills. Now this is really interesting. They divided up their legatos into 3 different kinds. They're sustained legatos, rapid legato with variation, and pattern legato. This rapid legato is supposed to be for fast runs, whereas the pattern legato is supposed to be built more for ostinato. And I really like this rapid legato. It really is, you know, if you're going to be doing your own runs, you don't have a run generator that's going to be able to supply what you need. Being able to do your own runs and get some very realistic sounds. That's probably a little better if I program them in, just because of my choppy piano skills. So let's go ahead and jump into our cello. Just going to load all the articulations there. Now I do have this as on an SSD drive, but loading into RAM does seem to take a little bit. Another thing I think that the SINE player could improve upon. Going over to performance mode, we could see our key switches set up for articulation changes. So we'll just go ahead and start with our sustained legatos. I'm going to go ahead and load up that outrigger and surround mic. Again, I don't know if I'm going to find a curve and a balance that I eventually really love with this, but for right now I'm just turning them on, and I tend to like the sound that it gives you, the little bit more room, a little bit more air in the room. Now, I do want to note here that this sustained legato is what they're calling the melodic legato, and this is the one that they've captured from performances. Just listen to some sustains. And then those soft sustains, which, like I mentioned before, I think make a real difference for the instrument. These sustained accents are very useful. I can't tell you how many times I go and have to add a staccato attack to a sustain just to get the bite that I want at the start of the note. Mikados having their own character. And the ones we're all waiting for, staccato and spiccato. And this is another one that I'm going to go ahead and show you the difference between the originally loaded up mic positions. And of course, the one that I always tend to gravitate to first is the spiccato, just so I could see what kind of bite we're going to get. And I'll do that again with the outrigger and surrounds turned down for you to hear. Again, I think that's going to be a real preference as to which one you gravitate towards, which sound. And it is nice that you do have those mixer positions. Pizzicato. I do really love the fortissimo pizzicato on these. It's got that real human like buzz, that first bit where there's just too much human attack. The note's slightly out of tune, there's a little buzz of the string. I really like that one. Tremolos. And again, those trills, half tone to whole tone with the foot pedal, but you've got the ability to change your CC if you'd like. Rapid legatos. And these pattern legatos are really built for ostinato patterns, is the way they've said, for legato ostinatos. And I think for each of the sections, I'm finding strengths in which of the legatos I prefer. I feel like they've done a great job of putting them together for their particular purposes. But for instance, the violins, all of them seem to work great. For the cellos, the pattern legato works well. I feel like the sustained legato, the melodic legato is outstanding. The rapid legato, even if you're programming it in, it's good. It's just not amazing like some of the other instruments they put together. Now let's go ahead and dive in. We'll just listen to a couple other of these instruments. We've got the violas, and I need to clear my list. There we go. And going over to our performance, you can see we've got all the same key switches, which is great. I really appreciate the way that the uniform key switches across all the instruments. Much easier to work with than having to figure out new key switches every time. Now this one, I have to say, I really love the sound of the violas. This melodic legato patch, I just think it's so lovely and velvety. I really like when we turn on our outrigger and surround, of course, because we get even more of that high-end room sound, in my opinion. On this particular instrument, you can see they've got expressive vibrato and subtle vibrato set up here for your foot switch. You can change your CC there as well. So let's go ahead and listen to the viola sustain. accidentally hit the mod wheel there. Soft sustains. And I think it's got a really nice sound. However, if we go back over here and go ahead and turn back up our outrigger and our surround, let's hear what kind of magic's added to the mix here. Just real nice room sound. I really appreciate these sustained accents, varying from the long marcatos and short marcatos. I think these sustained accents really have a real human character, a little bit out of tuneness at the beginning where they're digging in with that bow. Staccatos. And spiccato. Yeah, that's really beautiful there. And the rapid legatos. And the pattern legato. And I think one thing I've mentioned throughout, the legatos really have their strengths. The violins sound great throughout. The violas and the celli have different strengths for those legatos, those performance-based legatos. I think the ostinato ones for the celli and the melodic for the celli sound great. The violas... The rapid legato, I really feel like I have to play with that one to get it. Maybe it's a matter of performance overlap versus programming and tweaking it out. And that's just my humble opinion. Let's move on. We've got one more instrument, the basses. I'm going to go ahead and load up those outrigger and sustain mics and mute them. And we'll go ahead back to our performances. We've got our sustain legato or melodically. Right out of the gate with this one. I just love the sound of it. So just turning up these outrigger and surround. Let's see how much more room we get with this. And then to our sustains. And soft sustains. And these sustained accents there. I really love the bite of this, especially when you think about so many other libraries where you just have a sustain. To get that kind of a bite for an accent, you'd have to add a layer of a staccato or something. And it varies very much from those marcatos. So much bite there in the spiccato. Got a lot of pluck from the string, got the hollowness of the bass itself. Overall, I feel like Berlin Symphonic Strings adds a boldness. It's got such a massive sound for the string performances across all of those articulations. I feel like this is a nice compromise between a very basic articulation set and a full-blown massive set of articulations. You don't have a lot of film scoric, ponticellos, conlengos, things like that, but with the addition of that soft sustain, that will be very usable. That sustained accent will be very usable as well. I incorrectly had given the instrument a big plus in that all the key switches were in the same place. Of course, I got to the basses and realized they moved them up the octave. Now, I know they need to do that sometimes to clear out space, as the instrument needs to be in its proper range for most composers to use it easily. Now, it looks like there's ways to adjust your instrument range, possibly, so I'm going to have to dig in and see if I can move my CCs. I just love to have them all in the same place, and then that way I never have to think about them again. Those legatos are really lovely, and I really like how they've done performance-based legatos for both melodic, rapid, as well as the ostinato-based ones. And I think that how to get them to pull off and get a really realistic sound, probably more in programming. I'll discover amount of overlap that'll give me the right amount, and also which ones would be best for which purpose, of course. With the rapids, it makes a lot of sense that the runs are going to work for that one. For the ostinato ones, sometimes I think the runs legato might work well for it. That melodic legato is really lovely across all of the instruments. The addition of different microphones positions are what really gives this collection a bit of spice for me. I want to be honest and say with just the standard mic positions loaded up, I felt it was a tiny bit lackluster. It didn't have this resonation of these high-end frequencies and overtones, especially the sound of the bow on the strings running around the room and vibrating across all the ceilings and walls and floors in the hall or in the studio itself. Until I hit the outrigger and surrounds microphone positions, I got more of what I was looking for, what I want to hear out of a string library myself. That being said, that's a very personal choice as to what kind of sound you'll want out of your strings, and I may find over time that I'm using different mic positions with different curves to give each of the sections kind of more of the sound that I'd like them to have, and how well they'll blend together will be a whole nother thing to take into account. I can't end the review without mentioning some issues I've had with the SINE player. I've had it crash on me a couple times where I'd have to go back in and restart my session, load it up again and get it working. I also think that it's a little bit of a user error in my newness to the player itself, in that I'm not totally comfortable, not sure how to control some things, and need to do more investigation as to working with the player so I can make sure to get the most out of it. That said, it is much more stable than it was a year ago when I had trouble even loading up instruments. The other final critique I'm going to say is purchasing and downloading the library took a considerable amount of time. You can see clicking on the store, I've got a rainbow, spinning rainbow, because it just takes so long to access the store. Unfortunately, that problem, double folds, triple folds, quadruple folds, when it comes to downloading. It took me almost 14 hours to download this library, and although it's a massive size library, it's 74 gigabytes, that's just a very long time to be waiting for a download. That's the kind of thing that makes me a little frustrated about the SINE player, because that means I have to leave Logic turned on overnight and just walk away, leave my computer running. So my recommendations would be, if you don't have the SINE player, be sure and go over, grab it, and check out the free version they've got, this Layers instrument. You can download this one for free and try it out, and this will give you a good idea really quickly on if the SINE player is compatible, working well, streamlined within your system. I'll be eager to see as the developer continues, because they've got so many new instruments coming out. Really exciting stuff to see that they're going to continue to release not only orchestral tools libraries, but working with other developers for creative sound packs, making some really big waves this year with their Phoenix Orchestra, which won a nod from Sample Library Review's Best of 2020 awards list. So those are my thoughts after spending a couple days with the library. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, as well. Is the SINE player something you've been using and find stable? Is it something that you love and you can't wait to get more orchestral toolized libraries or organic sample libraries? Please comment below. Let me know your thoughts about not only the player, but the new Berlin Symphonic Strings library. Thanks for spending a little time with me. Please like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to meet us back here on the channel on Friday for the weekly Teal Compressor Show.